Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to follow up on a statement that Dr. Rowe mentioned, and which you stated that you learned about these attackers were a nation-state-sponsored cyber espionage unit to no less than 8 different nation-state-sponsored organizations. Who told you this? How did you determine that? And was that common knowledge in the IT network?
It was put together through information that the VA Information Security Team, they're called the Enterprise Network Defense Team, they put that information together because they track, as Mr. Warren stated earlier, they track all these issues across the network. They produce these reports. They would send them to me and Mr. Warren and a couple other folks, and I would read through them and work out a plan of action or strategy to work through this.
So the report you mentioned, which I believe we have a copy, multiple reports, so Mr. Warren received these reports as well?
Yes, he was on that email distribution list. I think it was only Mr. Warren, myself, and maybe one other person. There was like 3 people.
Had you discussed this issue of nation-state-sponsored organizations with Mr. Warren?
We did at time to time. Initially, when I first came on board at VA, he told me that we had uninvited visitors in the network. I pretty much knew what that meant. I had dealt with it before. And then going on in subsequent talks from time to time, I had a biweekly security meeting with Mr. Warren. It would come up about these attackers in the network. If we had an incident, might be the topic of the day that we had an incident and we're trying to work through it. So yes, we definitely talked about it.
And above Mr. Warren, did you discuss with any of his superiors about that, or did you just leave it in his hands?
I generally, my reporting line was to Mr. Warren. So generally, I didn't have a great opportunity to talk to folks above Mr. Warren.
Did you ever email them with the information or include them on a email distribution about this issue?
No, we just worked directly with Mr. Warren on those things.
Yeah, and I think you were here earlier, but a statement from Mr. Shinseki indicates that, again, to be clear, VA security posture was never at risk. Your opinion on that, Mr. Davis, is that an accurate statement?
I would say that it's not an accurate statement.
Okay. Did Mr. Warren ever tell you that was an inaccurate statement? Did you ever discuss something along this lines?
At the time when we were doing the ATOs, in the memorandum, and at a time when he visited my office, I believe it was January 22nd, I said that, that the process was just bad. And it would basically, as I wrote in the memo, I repeated the words that it jeopardizes the integrity of the security program.
Okay. And lastly, I didn't get a chance to ask questions on this issue, but recently it's come up that numerous other secretary and high-level individuals in Washington have at times used private, apparently non-secure email systems to communicate and to conduct business. Do you know if that was occurring at the VA?
I couldn't say definitively. I would suspect that people do that, but I have no direct knowledge that anybody was doing it. Mm-hmm. I was not asked to investigate or anything like that.
Okay. Were there any VA policies about doing that?
I believe there is a VA policy. I believe it would be more on possibly on the HR side of the house, but it may also be in a security policy that official business you have to conduct using VA-provided email systems and things of that nature. But I don't know the exact policy that would be, but I'm pretty sure that it's in policy.
Okay. And then lastly, and I'll yield back, Mr. Chairman, do you have any, I wasn't trying to figure out what you were doing in personal time, but the testimony you've given sometimes is not matched up with earlier testimony that, as I understood that, do you have any printed out emails or anything in your possession that would help establish the veracity of some of the discussions today, or is that all retained entirely by the department?
Any of these anything that I have with me, it's free to go to the committee. Some of this is off the public internet, mm-hmm. And some of them are internal VA documentation and email systems information, things like that. Some of them I would be concerned that where there are system compromise or system issues, exposures of data, that it identifies a particular vulnerability and the system. So I would ask that, that the system
understand.
piece of it be stripped out.
I understand. Last, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Davis, if I understand, you have 20 years of experience in the private and public sector dealing with system security, and it still is your recommendation that the VA network should be designated as a compromised environment. Is that still your?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. Hillskamp. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask? Very well. Our thanks, Mr. Davis. Thank you very much for your testimony today. You're now excused. It is obvious